This is Viva Fry.
I'm Dr. Peter McCullough.
This is Tom Luongo.
This is Chuck Prodnick.
This is Alex Kreiner.
Hey, this is Brad Wall.
This is JP Sears.
Hi, this is Frank Peretti.
This is Tammy Peterson.
This is Danielle Smith.
This is James Lindsay.
Hey, this is Brett Kissel, and you're listening to the Shaun Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Thursday. How's everybody doing today? The election just around the corner, and if you haven't marked your calendar yet, please do. April 28th. The mashup going to be live from noon Mountain Standard Time for 12 hours straight. So it is going to be a full day with guests from all across the country, and we're looking forward to being there. Hope you'll be live with us. I just want to make a note that we're going to be on X, on my account, Tu's account. We're going to be on YouTube on Clyde Do Something's channel. We're going to be on Facebook on my channel, and maybe some other channels coming as well. We're trying to break records for how many people we got watching live, and we hope you'll share it around and, tune in live on the day and share your comments. Make sure to text me. We got some giveaways coming for the Cornerstone Forum, so if you're wanting to get a free ticket, a giveaway ticket, that's in the talks now. So that was a Silver Gold Bull idea, huh? I guess we're going to talk about Silver Gold Bull right now, and Silver Gold Bull, along with Bull Valley Credit Union, the two major sponsors of the event, and they're pushing for different people to be there as well. So if you're like, oh man, I could win a ticket, yeah, we're going to be giving away some tickets throughout the day on the live stream. So make sure to tune in. Would love to have you there and share it around. You're going to be wondering what the heck's going on anyway, so make sure to tune in live, and we'll have the links and everything ready to roll, and looking forward to that. If you're buying anything from Silver Gold Bull, make sure to reference the SMP. It helps them, helps me, helps you. And you can also text or email Grahame about any of the feature deals they got going on, or any questions you may have around buying, selling, or storing precious metals. You can also use your retirement accounts to invest in it as well. So silvergoldbull.ca.com. Guardian Plumbing and Heating. When it comes to keeping homes, farms, and businesses running smoothly, they've been doing it since 2010. And one of the things that they do that sets Guardian apart is it makes your life easier. They got technicians on shift from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day, including weekends, and they don't charge you anything extra for evening or weekend service. That means you can get the help you need on your schedule without worrying about surprise costs. Just go to guardianplumbing.ca to find out all the things. Ignite Distribution, they're a high-service supply company based in Wainwright, Alberta, specializing in automotive parts and a wide range of additional products, including safety equipment, welding supplies, fasteners, and janitorial items. Operating as a Napa auto parts retailer, the company has recently expanded to a Wainwright location of 15,000 square feet. And that's Shane Stafford. You can give him a call, 780-842-3433. He's going to make sure your business gets to tick along doing the things you need to worry about while he worries about making sure you're up to stock and all the things you're stocked up on. I know that was a confusing sentence, wasn't it? I think it was. Maybe it wasn't. Farmers, I assume you've heard of precision. Man, I guess the tongue doesn't want to work today. Oh my goodness. Precision? Like, this usually happens on Mondays. I'm not even going to try it. Precision. Why am I spacing on this? Planting. Oh, my goodness. This is what happens when Shaun's been running at 100 miles an hour, getting ready for the 12-hour live stream. Precision. Why does that not coming out of my mouth? Planting. Has revolutionized farming. Don't take my word for it. Holy mackerel, with innovative technology to boost efficiency and profitability. The peas are giving me some serious problems right now. What started with a planter optimization now spans the entire crop cycle, offering hardware, software, and upgrades that work seamlessly across brands and models, giving you unmatched control over your operation. Locally, GoTech is evolving to serve you even better. Scott, your trusted expert, is still serving here, and now Jeff is joining the team, bringing fresh energy and ideas together. They're committed to delivering the same hands-on support you've come to rely on. I can just imagine the text line. People are going to be, you can send me how to say that word. All right? Send me some voicemails. I'd love to hear it. Some voice text, that is. Winter conference kicked off, and so they're checking, you can check out their seminars releasing on YouTube under GoTech and learn more about, oh man, here it is, precision planting. Why can't I do it? Is reshaping farming. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be able to say it, but right now I can't. Oh boy. Substack. free to subscribe to. We got the week in review every Sunday at 5 p.m. And if you want to support the podcast and maybe my speech, how to say, oh my God, get some behind the scenes, subscribe to Substack, and would love to have you guys support that. Cornerstone Forum is heading to Calgary May 10th. And I tell you what, we are gearing up. It is under 3 weeks. I'm so rattled that I can't say precision. Oh boy. Martin Armstrong is going to be in attendance. Tom Luongo, Alex Craner, Chuck Product, Kalen Ford, Chase Barber, Matt Ehret, Ben Perrin, Rod Giltack, Vince Lanchi, Chris Sims, Tom Bodrovics, 222 minutes, and now Jim Sinclair. All going to be in person. It is going to be a live, action-packed day, and tons of people going to be there. I hope you will grab your ticket, and we will see you there as well. New studio is also coming here in 2025. We got a value for value wall. We want your name on it. Shoot me a text. Would love to have you a part of that. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, X, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave a review. All right. Let's get on to that tale of the tape. She's a Canadian writer, journalist, founder of the Feminist Current, and host of the Same Drugs podcast. I'm talking about Meghan Murphy, so buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Shaun Newman podcast. Today I'm joined by Meghan Murphy. Meghan, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be back.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of these days, I hope it's under like circumstances where it's like, hey, you've just won a nomination, you're going to be in politics, or you just won $1 bazillion and the world's all sunshine and rainbows. Instead, not the case this time around either. I don't know. Tell us the story. I want to hear this story because I'm like, before you get to the banking debacle, you put your hat in the ring for the PPC. I was just kind of curious. Like, you're sitting in Mexico. What was it about the PPC? What was it about this election? Walk me through that before we get to everything else.
I mean, I stopped voting in 2015 because I didn't feel like any of the parties represented my interests at all, not even close. I've never voted Liberal. I was a lifelong NDP voter. And at a certain point, I started to realize that, I mean, my politics were probably changing a bit, but at that time, I mean, they've changed quite a bit since then. But at the time, you know, I had been speaking out in defense of women's sex-based rights and challenging gender identity ideology. And I decided that I wasn't going to vote for a party that pretended not to know what a woman was, primarily. I was like, I'm not, this is crazy. It's almost like voting to be insulted. You're voting for parties that claim to be, feminist or claim to be invested in women's rights. And meanwhile, all of a sudden they can't define what the word woman is. And I was trying to raise the alarm about gender identity ideology, and no one was listening. My political representatives weren't listening. These parties weren't listening. It was just, it was insulting and it was insanity. And I was like, I'm not voting for any of these parties. And at a certain point, the PPC came along, and I was like, thank God, this party has been challenging gender identity ideology unapologetically from the get-go. They were supporting free speech. They then later on were the only party to take a stand against the COVID mandates and to support the convoy. The PPC platform is a good platform. I really like Maxime Bernier. I did an event with him last year in Nanaimo, and he's a really wonderful guy. I think he's super smart. And again, I like what they stand for. So I had Maxime on my podcast maybe a couple of months ago, maybe a bit less time than that. And just before the interview, I looked up my old riding in Vancouver and East Van and saw that there was no PPC candidate running in that riding. And during the podcast, was like, so I noticed there was no PPC candidate in my riding. Do you think that I should run? And Maxime said yes, very enthusiastically, and seemed really excited about that prospect. And I thought about it a little bit more. He called me the next day and was like, I'm serious. I think you should run. And I was like, okay, well, I think maybe I'm serious too. And so I decided to go for it. I mean, I don't have any delusions about doing well in this election or winning the riding. It's an NDP stronghold. It has been for decades. It's gone to the NDP since I voted. But I feel like these are conversations that Canadians really want to have and that really need to be had, and they are being suppressed and silenced and ignored and avoided. And, somebody has to show up and force the conversations. And I mean, that's something that I've been doing for, a decade now, because I'm trying to have these conversations that no one will have, which is, of course, also why I've been so censored and blacklisted and vilified in Canada. But it's sort of, this is a way to push those conversations forward. So that's really the aim.
Yeah, well, the first time, I think lots of the listeners probably recall you being on Joe Rogan, but the first time you're ever on here, I was looked it up before we started, right? And it was 2022 October, so we just come out of freezing of bank accounts and the Stompy McStomperson, the horse, and and on it went during the convoy. But we, it felt like maybe brighter days were ahead of us, and here we sit, not quite 3 years later. But I feel like I'm like, oh man, this is like deja vu all over again. You have you back on, and at the time, you were down in Mexico, still in Mexico, but at the time you were down in Mexico because there was this moment coming at the end of 2021 where it's like, are you going to be able to leave the country? Are you not going to be able to leave the country? What's going to happen? And your background on speaking out about things, there was lots of Canadians that felt it was probably in their best interest to get out of the country before they locked it down, and who knows what happens after that. You fast forward and you think, oh, we're doing so great, we're doing amazing, and then I don't know if anybody thinks that, but I can see that people would start to be under this delusion of like, well, things are getting back to normal, whatever normal is, and then here you go, we're going to run in politics, going to do PPC thing, okay, well that's fine, and yet now they've frozen your bank account over this, I assume, because like when I read your article, the timeline looks almost picture perfect for they realized you were going to run and open up some difficult conversations maybe on stage, under the banner of debates in the area, I would assume, right? We have them here, although our conservative didn't talk in ours, so that's a different side note. I guess walk us through the bank account thing, and then your view from where you sit on Canada right now, because I'm sitting in Alberta, so like it's just like I don't know, is there a day go by, folks, where something odd doesn't happen in Canada at this point where you're like, really, that's still going on, or this happened, or like it just seems like it never ends. But you have the story, so let's walk me through what happened specifically on this bank account.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say for certain if it was politically motivated or not. It just seems very suspect to me. I mean, the same day that my candidacy was confirmed by Elections Canada, my bank account was frozen, and I sort of found this out by accident. My bank didn't tell me. Nobody called or sent an email or anything like that. I found out accidentally because somebody was trying to transfer. I was trying to get a transfer and it wouldn't go through. So I called the bank. I'm like, this transfer won't go through. Weird. And the woman on the phone told me that my bank account was frozen. And I asked why. And she told me that she couldn't give me any information. And I was like, okay, you froze my bank account. You can't give me any information. I asked them if they could send me something in writing. They refused to do that. Finally, I talked to somebody else and they told me that they just had received direction from the government. And when I pushed further, it was that they'd received, I was like, well, what did the government say? And they declined to tell me that. And then I pushed a bit further and then was told They, we received a fax from the government and they directed us to freeze the bank account. So we did. And I asked if I could see the fax and they said no. And they gave me a number to call the government. I called that number. The guy on the other end was on vacation, of course. There was another extension listed on the voicemail to call. I'm on vacation, call this number. So I call the other number, leave a voicemail, nobody returns my call. I call back later, leave another voicemail, nobody returns my call. I call back the next day, leave another voicemail, nobody returns my call. I call the day after that. There's technical difficulties. I was like, this is really weird. And this is crazy. I luckily had started moving most of my finances over to a US bank account a couple years ago, specifically because of the authoritarian, sketchy things that the Canadian government was doing, freezing the convoy bank accounts. And just generally, I was like, I don't want to be dependent on or associated with or vulnerable to this government in any way, because clearly they're very invested in cracking down on dissidents, which I am and have been for a long time, and which is why I left Canada 4 years ago. I left out of concern that I would be stuck there, that I would be persecuted, that I wouldn't be able to work, that my free speech would be limited. And so I wasn't left without any access to money, but for all they knew, I was. This should be illegal. This is insane that the government can just freeze your bank. This is my one bank account in Canada. For all they know, they froze my bank account and then refused to respond to my phone calls. The guy went on vacation, nobody referred to, and I just don't have any access to money for a week. So maybe they left me starving, homeless. What if there's an emergency health situation? It's disgusting. So yeah, I just, at a certain point, I called a general number at the government. Actually, I tried to call another number to see if I could get referred to somebody else who could tell me what was going on. The woman on the other end of the phone told me she can't give me any information unless I give her information. And I was like, okay, well, I have no information. That's why I'm calling you, to get some information. We go back and forth like this for a while. I ask her what her job is. I was like, what are Canadians' tax dollars paying you for? What is your purpose? And she goes, oh, I'm supposed to refer people to, departments or individuals who can answer their questions or help. And I go, can you refer me to somebody who can help me, tell me what's going on? No. So I hang up the phone, and at that point I just gave up. I was just like, screw this, screw the Canadian government. I'm pulling everything out of Canada and moving on with my life. I was supposed to fly back to campaign last Sunday. I canceled my flight. I don't trust them. I don't know what they're up to. This is all very sketchy. And so rather than be in Vancouver to campaign, I'm pretty disappointed that I'm not able to actually be there to engage with people living in the riding and engage in the all candidates meetings and stuff like that, because I was looking forward to doing that and doing some events with Maxime and so on and so forth. But I just don't trust it. I don't want to get stuck there. I don't want to get persecuted or prosecuted. I don't know what they're up to. So I'm still here. I'm still running in Vancouver East. So I hope people will vote for me. But, kind of just to show the NDP and the Liberals that there are people who care about these issues and that they can't, steamroller everyone. But yeah, it's both, it was shocking, but it's also not shocking. It was sort of, I can't put it past the Canadian government, really.
I got to ask him really dumb questions, so forgive me. I go like, okay, was the money transfer from
No, it's nothing like that. There was
it's nothing
sketchy.
Well,
it wasn't connected to a money transfer. It's not connected to taxes. I know people keep asking me, were you laundering money? There was hardly any money in the bank account, by the way. The bank account was next to empty. It's not. I don't. There was any large sums of weird money coming in.
Even if it was, I go. So I come back. The one time in my recent history I've been locked out of my bank account was for an e-transfer I was sending to buy Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin thing, I ended up talking to not only the first person, but then I had to get pushed up the ladder to like one of the managers, and then another one came on, and I was like, what is happening right now? You can't just lock me out. And it was for $100. That was what all it was to just see if the process would work. Cause I was just trying to buy some Bitcoin. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. I'm like, I just want to see if I got it right so I don't screw it up. And if I lose $100, and as I told them on the phone, I'm like, if I lose $100, like it's not the end of the world, but I want to make sure this process works. And let me tell you, I tried it again and it got rejected the second time. So I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And so I think a lot of us have been doing banking a heck of a lot different in Canada, not only since Ottawa, but in the days after that. So that's why I asked the dumb question. Not that I'm worried. I was just curious, like, why do they flag it? Why does the government, like, they can't give you a reason? Doesn't that just raise everyone's hair? Like,
I mean,
what do you mean?
I think it was frozen before the transfer happened because the transfer wouldn't go through because the account was already frozen. So that it was just, that's what triggered me to phone the bank and see what was going on. I'd used my account a few days prior to pay a bill. So it's, yeah, there was nothing strange.
Is it still frozen?
Account, so yeah.
And nobody will get back to you?
Nope. I don't really care. I'm just sort of, I mean, I do care, but I just am like, screw this.
Well, obviously you care a little bit because I'm like, to be on the run, right? I think lots of the listeners know your story, right? Like I certainly know your story. We've had you on the podcast before, and I guess I should pull that up. If there's somebody listening right now, and they're going, what? You had her on before? Episode 329, folks. You got to go ways back in the old machine to find that. October 17th, 2022. You're going to be like 830, I don't know, 7 or 8, right? Like we've done a ton of shows since then. But I mean, I guess it's I don't know. I'm like, you obviously care a little bit because if you were sitting in Mexico, I'm like, screw this. I'm not coming back. But to throw your hat in the ring for politics, even though you're like, I'm probably not going to win, I'm not even going to get close, on and on and on. I'm like, I don't know. I talked to a ton of expats who still care about the country, obviously, because they want to come back and try and open up some conversations and try and fix or help what's going on here. And instead, they're just like, government's like, nope, that person, bank account, scorched earth. Nope, we're not dealing with this. And it's like, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, I care in that it's wrong and disgusting and insane. But yeah, I'm not going to fight that anymore. I'll continue to fight for Canada and these conversations. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I obviously still do care about the country. Otherwise, why would I bother to be continuing to try to raise the alarm and to show people what's really going on? It seems like there's so many people in Canada who have their heads in the sand, and it's wild. People still sort of pretend that everything is fine and good. Obviously, there's still people who are willing to vote for the Liberal Party despite all that the Liberal Party has done over the past 10 years, which is also insane to me. So yeah, you're right. I shouldn't say I don't care. It's sort of more like, I'm not going to bother trying to fight you on this. Fine, you can have my bank account. I'll move on.
Yeah, but that in itself is insane.
Yeah.
Not you, just like the whole situation. It's like, how many Canadians are sitting here going, right? What? Like, it's wild to me. You didn't, as far as I read and as far as I've heard now, you haven't got like an email saying, hey, this is why we froze your bank account. In order to unlock it, just do these 3 steps or something like that. You don't know what part of government, like you just say government. I'm like, that's pretty wild. It isn't like, Bob from accounting in this firm shut it down because I don't even know. Like, I'm
Well,
like,
they
I'm trying
gave
to
me
make
a
sense of it.
number for a guy at the CIA or the CIA, the CRA, who I called and he was on vacation. But it's not, that doesn't make sense either. It's not a tax related issue. So, and this guy never returned my call, never answered the phone. Again, the other number I called never returned my call, never answered my phone. The CRA, like, they have my email. I have lots of emails from the CRA between 2016 and 22. I checked through my emails and I was like, surely they know how to contact me. Nothing, none of it makes any sense.
This is depressing. I mean, I don't, like, it's like, what do you even say to that? I don't even know who to get. It's just like the Canadian government, you've been obviously traveling internationally a lot, right? You've been back and forth between Mexico and Canada a lot. I assume you've been through the States. And like I always say, I'm married to an American. When you go across into the States, if you have any questions, you call the border. And what do? You get the border. They pick up the phone. They talk to you. It's a human being. On the flip side, if you're trying to come to Canada, you get an automated message and you get bounced around to like 17 different things and you never get to talk to a border official. It makes zero sense to me. I don't see how that would work, like why you would set it up that way. If people want to get answers, why wouldn't you just allow them to talk to somebody? And when I hear your situation here, it's like you can't even talk to the, like, what happens when you call your bank? They just deflect
They
and
just
say
tell
it's
me they can't
government.
give me any information and deflect and say it's the government. Yeah.
Have you mentioned? I don't know. Have you said who the bank is? Which bank is it?
Ben City. It's a credit union, actually.
It's a credit union.
Yeah.
A credit union.
And I've had a bank account there since I was 10 years old. This is the one bank account that I've had in Canada. It was my only bank account. I've had it since I was 10 years old.
So what are you're just gonna leave it? You're gonna say fuck it.
Yeah. Screw them. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to deal with them anymore. I don't really need that account. I'd rather operate out of the US financially. I'm just so done. I mean, I'm at a loss here, I don't, and it's shocking to me that, again, so many people in Canada think everything is fine and good and they're just continuing on their way voting for these parties who have behaved in such draconian authoritarian ways. Never mind the fact that, the Liberal Party totally destroyed the Canadian economy and people can't afford to buy groceries and gas and homes in Canada. And now they're still going to go back to voting for Mark Carney, who was Trudeau's financial advisor. He's responsible for destroying the economy as much as anyone.
When you're down in Mexico, I'm always curious because I actually just had Drew Weatherhead on, and he's, in 2021, he sold everything. He'd lost his business. He's got a young family. And, forgive me, folks, I'm pretty sure the story goes he'd never been, and was it never or was it not very often? One of the two had been camping. They bought a trailer and a truck and they drove across the border and every year now they go down to the States for 6 months essentially. And then they come back up and they go back and forth. And he has very similar views on Canada as yourself. And I'm wondering, like, as you sit down in Mexico and you stare up at Canada, like me sitting in it all the time, it's just like, when I say, "Oh, how was your Easter?" I was like, "Oh, I took a break. Like I just unplugged from it. I'm just tired of seeing the stupidity, and at times it can almost be soul sucking, if you would." When you're sitting down in Mexico and you're looking up and you're talking to people and you're seeing things happening in Canada, like I'm just curious, what is your view from down south on what is happening up here in the north?
Yeah, I mean, I think once you leave the country, I obviously saw that things were going very badly in Canada, and that's why I left. I saw that things were getting really dangerous. But being out of the country, you can see things even clearly. People will often criticize me for leaving and being like, "Well, you don't know what's going on here. How can you talk about it? You're not even here." Or, "You abandoned us." And I was like, well, I've been fighting for Canada for a really long time. I've continued to fight for Canada from Mexico. I've fought louder and harder than most people in Canada. And I can see things more clearly, and I can see how the world sees things in Canada, which is that, Canada has become clown country. And then, you see these liberals behaving as though Canada is still the envy of the world. And, at least thank God we're not America. And it's delusional. It's delusional. And, Canada is just going the direction of China or North Korea, and people don't want to believe it. I think they want to hang on to the vision of Canada that we all had in the 90s, like Canada was once a good place to live. It's no longer a good place to live. It's no longer a safe place to live. It's no longer the envy of the world. And I think I hate to sound like a cynic, but it seems like it's getting worse, because unless people really snap out of it and start to see things clearly and start to fight back, then things won't improve. It's the government's fault, sure, but people are still voting for that government.
Yeah, I know here in Alberta, a lot of people are putting faith in the Conservatives, right? Pierre gets in and things will improve, I would say. I think there's certainly been a lot more talk about the PPC this go around than the last go around. I'll happily admit that. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me at this point. It's like, because when I look at the election, I had Maxime on, and when I look at the comments that I got back on it and what people are talking about, it just seems like, okay, they're all going to vote Conservative in hopes Conservatives get in, and then they can right the ship, so to speak, and Pierre and team can kind of course correct this. When I say that, I'm kind of curious your thoughts on if the Conservatives get in, or do you just see the Liberals getting in?
I had high hopes for the Conservatives under Poilievre early on. I liked him. I thought he seemed like a populist leader. I thought he was taking on a lot of sacred cows in Canada that needed to be taken on. I thought he seemed brave and bold. I no longer see things that way. Obviously, I think he would be a lot better than Mark Carney as a leader. Mark Carney will ruin Canada for sure. But Poilievre, it seemed like as of January, Trudeau announces he plans to resign, freezes Parliament. They install Carney as the leader of the Liberal Party. And it was almost like Poilievre stopped campaigning. He stopped talking about these issues that I was really banking on him to not just talk about, but be bold and unapologetic on. Gender identity ideology, free speech. I don't know why he hasn't taken a firm stand against the COVID mandates and say, never again. That's what people want from him. Things like immigration even. And I worry that people are putting too much faith in, okay, if we just get the Conservatives win, then we'll have saved Canada and everything will be fine. Because I don't think that's true. I think he needs to be pushed much further, towards the PPC platform. And instead, he's moving in the opposite direction towards the Liberals. And I think maybe whoever is advising him wrong, but he's playing it safe in a way that I don't think is helping his campaign, and that I definitely don't think will help Canada. And so that's been really disappointing to me.
Let me ask you a different train of thought then. There's another train of thought that's like, maybe we should just all vote Carney and have Mark Carney come in, because then people, the only way change happens is pain. And under Carney, there will be pain. In saying that, under Justin Trudeau, there was pain as well, to the point of the Freedom Convoy happening. And that didn't snap enough people, in my opinion, out of their everyday, monotonous, routines, if you would. What are your thoughts on the thought process? Well, maybe the best thing that can happen to Canada, and this is definitely Western sentiment, I might add, over all of Canada. There's this Western alienation, Western separatism thought process that the best thing for Western Canada is just for Carney to get in, and for them to make it adamantly clear they don't care about the West. They don't care about, like what was the thing Chris Sims just talked about? Tariffs on carbon. So one of the things on Carney's budget is in the coming years, if he wins, to have tariffs on carbon, meaning like goods we buy from overseas, there's going to be a tariff on the carbon on it. I'm trying to wrap my head around it because it's like, this is insane. But maybe the best thing to happen is Carney getting in.
Yeah, that's occurred to me as well. Because I think that Canadians will remain complacent about what's happening in Canada if the Conservatives get in, and then, next election, maybe the Liberals are voted back in, nothing changes, things get worse. Unfortunately, I feel bad saying this because I don't want things to get bad for Canada and Canadians. I don't want things to get worse, but I also think that maybe people are not going to wake up until things get a lot more uncomfortable. Because I think a big part of the reason why people continue to go along with this is because they're comfortable. They're like, well, things are fine. My life is fine. I have all my stuff. I have my things. I've got my apartment or my condo and my Netflix and my Amazon deliveries. I have all my stuff. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And maybe people aren't going to wake up until things aren't okay, which I think will happen under Carney. So, it's hard to say out loud that I wish for Carney to win because I think he's awful. I think he's pompous and condescending and elitist and a globalist. I think he doesn't think he's accountable to anybody, including obviously the media. He doesn't think he's obligated to answer questions from the media. And I think he'll ruin Canada. But at the same time, if Canadians haven't woken up now after what happened during COVID and what happened to the convoy and what's continuing to happen to people involved in the convoy, where the government is still trying to throw, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber in prison. And, there are guys who were involved in the convoy who are still in prison. I don't know. Then I guess something worse needs to happen. What's going to work at this point?
Well, I don't know how to answer that question other than just the conversations I have off air. When you get talking about the everyday person, when they go to the grocery store, like when my wife first moved here, I guess it's 12 years ago now, folks. I just think of what we could put in a cart back then, and that cart you couldn't get, what is it? Is it triple since back then? I think of now grocery shopping. I'm like, man alive. Like, look at what's in there and how much it costs.
I don't know. I couldn't afford, I couldn't survive in Canada at this point. It wouldn't be possible. I don't know how people are doing it. Last time I went back, I was back there last spring and summer and fall. I was back there in May and then August, September. And it was unbelievable to me. I was like, I can't do this. I can't afford this. I'm not a wealthy person. I just don't know how people are managing there.
Well, I think you just find ways, right? It's like, how did, it's a dark image to put out there, but how did people survive in Soviet Russia? Yeah. They just did. Or pick any one of your different countries that have gone through really difficult times and just pick it. And, and then think, well, and as bad as Canada is, it's got to get a lot worse before it becomes, the situation in the Weimar Republic and on and on and on, all these different things go. But like all the tea leaves are pointing towards like, this isn't getting better anytime soon. And the fact that Carney's even in the conversation, one of the things that's hard to know, we're under a week away from the federal election. We're going to find out. And we're going to find out which way Canada wants to go. And, how much worse does it have to get? I have no idea. I try and remind myself that before COVID, Meghan probably would have been like, Shaun, wake the hell up. What are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm just living life. We're having kids and we're dealing with, the things that you deal with. And here I sit and I'm like, I don't know what it takes. But I have to believe that if it gets worse, that more people are going to start to wise up to the fact this ain't getting any better anytime soon. If Carney gets in for another 4 years, if that scenario were to play out, I don't know how in the West, specifically the West. You couldn't look at them and be like, this is going to be a rough go here for the next bit.
Yeah. And, maybe it would be good for parts of Canada. Maybe it would force Alberta to separate. So that would be good for Alberta.
Well, the thing about separation or independence or 51st state, because there's three trains of thought all centered around this idea of a referendum, is, it'd be a long drawn out process. This isn't something you snap your fingers and all of a sudden tomorrow it's all done. It's a long drawn out process. And the thing about if Alberta were to lead the way in that is other provinces would see it, specifically in the West. I'm specifically talking about Saskatchewan. And I think there would be a bit of a landslide of that type of sentiment if it were to at all be possible in Alberta. If Alberta could at all get to the point of a referendum and then have a successful referendum, I think a lot of provinces would start to stare at that idea in a little more positive light would be my way of putting it, right? Because like Alberta isn't just like, when I look at it, it isn't just like Alberta leaves, and they're just done and the rest of Canada just gets to mosey on like nothing happened. That would cause, well, think of all the conversations that would happen if that were to happen at all in the next year.
Well, and it would have a negative impact on the Canadian economy as well, which is
It's
why
true.
Alberta should separate, because the rest of Canada is taking advantage of and exploiting Alberta, and
Would
Alberta
Meghan
doesn't
Mur-
really need the rest of Canada in the same way that the rest of Canada needs
if Alberta was to go down that road, would Meghan Murphy become an Alberta resident? Or you're like, no,
I'm
no.
sticking in Mexico.
How's Mexico
I love
been?
Mexico.
Well, you've been there 4 years now, right? Or
Yeah,
just
yeah.
under 4?
4 years, yeah, a little over 4.
And that's been, I mean, I don't know.
I love Mexico. I mean, I love Mexicans. I love Mexican culture. I love that people here don't talk obsessively about politics. I love that, family and community and fun and tradition and parties and joy is prioritized and celebrated, and people help their, I have a community here. I didn't have that in Vancouver. Maybe I did at one time, a long time ago, but certainly no longer. You don't know your neighbors. Nobody, people are kind of out for themselves in Vancouver. There's nothing fun going on. I think people are really uptight. People want to, sort of be involved in their neighbor's business in as much as they can control them, but not in any kind of supportive way. I like the lifestyle here. I like the weather. I feel much happier here, and I feel free. I love Mexico for all sorts of reasons beyond the fact. It's not just I don't want to live in Canada because of the authoritarian government. It's part of it, of course. But the lifestyle is a lot more relaxed and live and let live, right?
Not to mention the weather. Goodness gracious,
Yeah.
The weather must be fantastic.
The weather's great. I mean, to be honest, summer is coming, and the summers here are pretty rough because I live. It's in the jungle. It's a beach town, but it's in the jungle, so it gets very, very hot and humid, and then we get a storm season and a hurricane season, and we lose power a lot. So it's not constantly idyllic.
Perfect. Yes.
But much of the year, of course, it's beautiful and nice, and you're getting your vitamin D. I feel healthier here. My immune system is stronger here. It's, I have great access to produce and meat and vitamin D, and there's downsides too. They're just, for me, I'll take them. Things aren't as easy in a lot of ways here as they are in places like Canada and America. Like I said, we still suffer a lot of power outages. You have less easy access to all the nice things and the conveniences, and some things are sort of, harder to accomplish and to get done, and so on and so forth. But I feel like that's part of the charm, the chaos and unpredictability. And, is the internet company going to show up today or maybe next month or maybe never?
Before I let you out of here, I feel like I may have asked you this first go around, but I'm always curious with people who left Canada to go to a different country. And you look at Mexico, and I've certainly holidayed there, but I've never, lived there. I've talked to different people who have for short stints. And I'm kind of curious, when you were looking at Mexico and you moved there, what surprised you that you, good or bad, or both, about being there? You know, you've mentioned a lot, but like when you go there compared to being in BC, you probably had, oh, man, well, I hope this works out. And then were you pleasantly surprised with a bunch of things? Like, man, I didn't even think of that.
I mean, it wasn't a plan. I didn't plan to move to Mexico. I'd been coming here to Sayulita on vacation for many years. I came here for the first time in 2006, and I've always loved it here. And when I came here, like I wasn't necessarily planning on staying permanently. I was escaping Canada, and I was going to see how things went. But it wasn't an intentional, I just abandoned my life in Vancouver. I just abandoned my apartment and my truck and all of my things and came here and figured it out, and then was happier and saw things getting worse in Canada, so just stayed. So it wasn't, people often ask me, how do you do it? How do you go about moving to Mexico? I'm like, I don't know. You just have to come here and figure it out. There's no system. There's no like easy plan to move to Mexico. You have to be very flexible, and you have to be okay with a certain level of chaos. And to be honest, like from a philosophic sense, like I think that helps you relax. If you know that there's a lot of things that are sort of going to be out of your control, then your vibe is like, okay, I'm just going to roll with it and I'll figure it out. And, if I need help, my friends or my neighbors or, that guy down the road will help. That's how people are here. And that's, probably generally what it's more like living in a small town anywhere as opposed to a city. I'd already sort of decided that I was done with cities. It wasn't, I was sort of looking at and sort of vaguely thinking about moving out of Canada already, and definitely out of Vancouver. And, was looking at America or, like maybe Nelson or the island or somewhere smaller. That was sort of what I was looking towards. And then, like I said, I came here and I was happier. We were free. There was no, everybody was operating as usual. There was no COVID fear. There was no obsessive discussion about which vaccine you were going to take. There was no masking. We were just living life as always, and everything was fine. And I find people very warm here and kind and happy, and which is interesting to me because there's a lot of people in Mexico who don't have very much. And I think a lot of people that I know still living back in Canada think, again, well, I need all these things to have a happy life. And they're not happy. They have all these things. They technically have much more than I do, They make more money than I do. They've got their condo or their house or their vehicle or, all their nice stuff, but they're miserable. So yeah, I mean, I can't say that. I don't know. I mean, things surprise me constantly. You're constantly learning how to deal with very strange situations.
What's the last strange situation?
Oh my
We're
gosh.
like, this is
there's just insane things happening all the time, but you have to sort of be accustomed to your neighbor's having like a 13-year-old birthday party until 5 a.m. and there's roosters and there's dogs and there's iguanas and there's scorpions in your house sometimes. And, sometimes then the ants take over your entire bathroom. And yeah, I mean, and in the summer you lose power and you don't know when it's going to come back. And you're sitting in the dark, sweating in your house. And eventually you're like, okay, well, maybe we'll go into town and see what everybody else is doing. Or, I can't even begin to describe the like chaos and hilariousness that happens here in Mexico almost every day, and that you can observe. But I really just find it endlessly fun and entertaining, and it brings me a lot of joy. So.
Well, I'm glad the power was on today. I'm glad that you could hop on and bring us up to speed on the things happening in your world. And hopefully we don't wait 3 years to do this all over again. But either way, thanks for giving us a bit of time today.
Yeah,
and
thanks so much for having me again.
Hopefully things get figured out. I know you don't care, but I and moved on. I'm just like, to me, that is a wild story. I look forward to the day when somebody emails me or Substack again going, hey, she got her bank account back. And wouldn't you know, they thought she was, I don't know, whoever. And I know that's not coming, but
I mean, I shouldn't say I don't care, but it's sort of, I have an attitude of, and in general, I think I try to have this attitude as well. But, this is going to sound maybe a bit cheesy, but like I trust the universe, and I feel that when bad things happen, there's usually a reason or something useful or good comes of it. And I'm like, okay, I trust that there's a reason for this, that I'll be like, well, good that happened in the end. Maybe this wakes people up or something.
I don't
like
think there's
that,
anything cheesy about that whatsoever. Lots
and
of
you
times
can't stress about it. I mean, there's no, what's the point in, I was obviously very, very, very angry when it happened, and was really angry for a few days following when I was given the runaround and trying to get a hold of all these people and no one was giving me information. But at a certain point, you just have to be like, okay, like me getting angry and stressed about this isn't going to resolve the situation. So I'm moving on with my life.
Megan, before I let you out, if people want to find your work, where can they search you out?
Oh, please come find me on Substack. You can just search my name, Meghan Murphy, on Substack, or you can go to www.meghanmurphy.ca. And, I rely almost entirely on paid subscribers to sustain my work and to support the work that I do. So I really appreciate if people go over there and become a paid subscriber. It's just $5 a month, and it helps me out a lot. My podcast, The Same Drugs, is on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. Again, just search for Meghan Murphy. Like and subscribe, of course. And I'm on X. Thank God. After having been
Do you think it's
banned
quite
for 4 years.
Did you see Carney talk about censoring big American media platforms, and it's just X. That's
sure.
That's exactly what he's talking about.
For sure. I think that if he wins, they're going to ban it in Canada for sure, because it's hate speech, right?
Yes.
They're going to pass their online hate speech laws so that Canadians are going to be dragged through human rights tribunals endlessly for saying something politically incorrect on Facebook. They're going to ban Canadians from accessing X. They're going to censor YouTube. They're already doing that. They're already controlling what Canadians see in their algorithms as it is. Of course they can't have X. There's too much free speech there.
Well, Megan, thanks for doing this and for hopping on today. All the best, and look forward to the next time you're on.